Hi everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the second season of the Surrogate podcast. I'm Ellie and I'm really excited to be your guest host today. Today's episode dives into Embryo Transfer Day, and I'm really pleased to have Gina Kinton and Kay King here to share their experiences. Let's dive right into it, ladies. Embryo Transfer Day. I feel like this is it's a main part of a journey, right? You can be quite nervous going into that. It'd be really good to hear a little bit about your experiences of Embryo Transfer Day.
Well, I'm going to let Gina go first because essentially everything I'm going to say is I just followed what Gina told me to do. Go first, Gina.
Embryo Transfer Day is the best day. Like, it's really positive, it's really exciting, but you're also quite apprehensive as well. So I listened to other surrogates and their tips, and I woke up early, I had a shower, not remembering not to do the things that my clinic had told me not to, etc. Made sure I had clean underwear on. It's just like going for a smear test. So basically all your prep that you would do for a smear test, you do for Embryo Transfer Day. You normally get a phone call from the clinic, right, sort of first thing in the morning, and they're just letting you know that the embryo has thawed nicely and that it's a go-ahead, so that you're not spending 3 hours travelling or whatever for no reason. Arrive at the clinic. Sometimes your IPs are with you. Hopefully they are. Sometimes IPs can't be with you. My third transfer, my IPs couldn't be with me, but they were with me via telephone. So we sort of did it like a FaceTime. So they were there in the room as such. I have a full bladder. So that was difficult. I remember the first transfer I ever had, I had such a full bladder, got to the clinic and the consultant wasn't there. And she said, it's going to be about a half an hour wait. And I just literally panicking because I was thinking, I'm going to wait. Somehow way that you are going to be able to press a probe and scan my tummy without me wetting myself. Like, I was just, no. So I did ask one of the nurses and I said, can I just have a wee? If I just let a little bit out, then I'm going to be more comfortable. And luckily my pelvic floor are very good, so I was able to do a little wee, and I still drank some more and my bladder was fine. It is very quick. You think it's going to be a sort of long drawn out thing, but it's actually probably about 15 minutes, not even that. It's not uncomfortable at all. Exactly the same as a smear test. The speculum goes in, it's very discreet, and you can have the sort of sheet over your knees, etc., and your IPs can be up your head end as such. You can have 1, 2, 3 people in, depending on what your clinic says and how many people can be there. Your support partner or, both IPs as such. It's then just a case of popping the speculum in. They scan your tummy or scan your uterus, make sure everything's looking good. The consultant then sort of tells the people in the other room, they're the ones that sort of like have the embryologist and the sort of where the actual embryo is in a petri dish and everything. They come through with the catheter with the embryo in. It's then popped in nicely in the folds of the lining. They then rescan to make sure everything's okay and it's in the right place, and they remove the speculum and everything's good. And it's as quick as that.
Is there any sort of like pain or discomfort associated with that?
Only in the same way there is when a speculum put in.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's painful as such unless that's something that you do feel when you have a smear test.
Yeah, I guess for different people that would be a different level of it. Some people really, really don't. Enjoy is the wrong word. I hope nobody particularly enjoys having a speculum put in, but it can be uncomfortable for people if there's any trauma or if you've experienced any difficulties in that way. And there is sort of, as with any gynecological procedure, there needs to be a sensitivity around that, but it's not painful. The actual transfer of the embryo itself is something I would say that's relatively without feeling. The catheter that goes into you is smaller than the size of a strain of spaghetti. That's just passed through the cervical entrance. What I find is it is mind-boggling that is how it starts, because you then are lying there going, right, I shouldn't move ever again. You do suddenly go, they're telling me to get off the bed. What?
And the first thing you want to do is go for a wee because you've got a full bladder. And I was petrified that I would then go and wee the embryo out.
So you don't want anything to come out your body ever again.
But they're very clever, and I think I was really quite glad the consultant said to me last time was that actually the embryo gets put in the folds of the lining of the womb, so there's no way that it can fall out at all.
So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things when you go down the Google trap hole of looking at embryo transfer, which even people with a good education on it still do, is that there's this fear that the first time you poop or the first time you wee that you're going to push the embryo out. You know, you're talking about something that is absolutely minuscule, and you just worry about any kind of outward motion. You're just, everything in you goes, I want to hold this in. But yeah, I think the day itself carries this real beauty to it that and actually all the embryo transfers that I've had, there's this really lovely moment where you go pregnant until proven otherwise. And for the first point in your journey, you go, I can just rest in that sort of like, we got here, we got to this point. And then the 2-week wait starts and you're in a whole new cycle of thinking about different things. But just on that day, it is a really lovely, there's nothing to tell me right now that this isn't going to lead to the journey that we were hoping for. And it feels really nice pause.
And you feel quite honoured, don't you? Because you're there when your IPs, this is the moment that their baby is sort of almost now sort of here in the room, if you saw it. There's an actual embryo here in the room, inside you. And I felt like I almost was encroaching on like their special moment, the moment they become pregnant as such, even though it was me. I sort of it's almost sort of hovering above the mine, the yours type sort of element as such. So yeah, it's quite humbling.
I can imagine it's a lot of emotion as well, kind of going in knowing that you go into the 2-week wait straight after this, and what if it all doesn't go to plan? What was your guys' sort of experience with that? How do you manage those emotions? Is it something you speak to your IPs about? Is it something that you'd kind of rather deal with a little bit more personally?
I think I'd agree with Gina on the fact that the day itself feels really, really special to your IPs. Every embryo transfer that I've been at, my IPs have been there. And you, as a surrogate, particularly if you've had failed cycles beforehand, or if you are somebody who has, worked in reproductive health a lot, it can be a little bit like, it's quite a simple procedure, actually. It doesn't feel magical in a sense of, the clinic aren't there sort of applauding you all and what have you. You go in, you come out. And I think trying to hold space for how important it is to your IPs, I think in every embryo transfer I've been in, there's been a tear shed, or there's been like squeeze of hand, or those, and trying to just be kind of hold reverence for how important that day is for them, and then planning something nice afterwards. I've had 4 embryo transfers, and each time has been slightly different, but this time I really, really heeded a bit more advice around resting. Now, everything tells you not to do bed rest, it's carry on with your life as usual. But this time I took a few days off work. I had a little bit more rest around it because the previous transfers hadn't been successful. I just wanted to go, okay, well, what would it look like if I sort of hung out on a sofa for a few days and took it quite easy and, didn't have to kind of worry about work and what have you. So there was that sort of special time around it as well of thinking, this could be it, Yeah.
I used a lot of distraction. So I came at it when trying to do even though I'm completely not somebody that believes in fate or, if you superstition or anything like that, I kind of thought if I throw every single thing that I know or that I can do, then obviously, God's going to be on my side and things are going to, at least I can say I gave it everything. So, I wore the fluffy socks and I sort of drank lots of pom juice and I was having pineapple and I was eating Brazil nuts and, trying to throw every single thing that I could possibly think of.
So these were my Gina-isms. These were what I got from Gina telling me what's the orgasm the night before.
Yes, definitely.
But don't on the day.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
What about my orgasm the day before?
Not about your orgasm specifically, but about the thought process behind the orgasm.
So
a lot of the people...
different information out there, but my thought process on it is blood flow to the uterus the day before a procedure to the uterus can't be a bad thing. But afterwards, whilst I don't think orgasms afterwards are a bad thing, once you're a couple of weeks afterwards, I think the few days afterwards, giving everything the opportunity for as much stillness is probably quite good. But the day before, blood flow pumping.
And you release an awful lot of oxytocin when you have an orgasm. So, whether, and we're not sort of, there doesn't need to be sort of actual intercourse involved or anything like that. However you go about having your orgasm, it really does. It's a really good way to flood your body with loads of happy, feel-good hormones so that your mind is really in a good place and you're feeling good and you've got that sort of, you sleep well. So, yeah, it's just making sure that everything is sort of really, really flowing well and feeling good.
And then Brazil nuts, which I didn't know until speaking to Gina quite close to my last embryo transfer. So I probably ate way too many Brazil nuts. I'm sure they didn't have any impact whatsoever. But in the day before and the day after that of my embryo transfer, I just ate Brazil nuts and the pom juice, which is beetroot juice, isn't it, that we're trying to get from that. So I'd said to my IPs, there's speculation that beetroot juice is quite good. It's got this ingredient in it, which is useful. And when I got to their house, I think they bought 6 litres of beetroot juice. But I don't think I need that much. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's lots of sort of vitamins, minerals, warm feet, warm uterus, all the sort of like little aspects of sort of, if this could help, let's do it. It's not going to hurt anyone, is it? Having your McDonald's fries afterwards.
Did you know that's a big statistic?
I did not know that on the idea as well. What's the sort of idea behind that?
I can't remember what it is.
I think it's just sort of, maybe salty fries, maybe it's a salt in it, maybe I
can't remember what the story behind it is, but you can now buy embryo transfer day socks with pictures of McDonald's fries on them. And I didn't have them myself, but if there's a superstition out there, it's out there, isn't it?
Yeah. So whether you're a surrogate or, just somebody going through IVF, I think the whole world knows about these little things and they sort of get advice, like they go down the line, don't they? So and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden it's sort of added on to this whole list of things that you can do to help things along, whether any of it's true or not.
Whether any of it's true or not, and I think actually if I lent into more kind of what I believe about assisted reproductive health, it is way more down to chromosomes and cells and what's going to work on a clinical level. I actually think I'm pregnant this time because of the testing that my IPs had on their embryos, and my previous IPs didn't have that testing, and I'm a huge fan of it. I think if there is testing you can do to check on whether there's, the ability for your embryos to implant, it's going to cost a bit more money, but I would encourage you to do it if your clinic offers that. It definitely allows you to go from having potentially a large pool of embryos down to some really, really viable ones. And I think it's probably way more around that. But everything that Gina and I are saying as well around whenever you're doing something physiologically, if you are more relaxed and you're warmer and you're safer and there's space around it and you're not rushed and you're not stressed, it's probably more likely to work, right? I think that's true for any fitness programs that we do or anything. Like, you want to be in a good mindset. If you have missed your train on the way to the embryo transfer and you're rushing across to get to the clinic and then it's quite cold and you haven't brought an extra layer, like, your body is going to be in the wrong kind of state of nervous system health. So you want to feel relaxed, you want to feel calm, you want to feel lots of oxytocin flowing, just as you do for birth. All of the environments of kind of keeping your body feel safe are really important.
And I know we will touch on this next question further down the season, another episode, but obviously you go straight into the 2-week wait after. How do you kind of manage the uncertainty of kind of just before going in on, I'm about to go into something where I know I'm going to be really nervous. I know I don't know what's going on for these next 2 weeks. How do you sort of manage going into that?
I would say plan. I would say really sort of maybe organise some things to do, because I think distraction is a really key thing. I use distraction when I feel anxious, when I'm worried about something, putting something in place, sort of maybe arranging a cinema trip or a meal out with your husband or partner, or doing something with the children, or, you know, planning something that you're going to do every day that's actually you can focus on, and will distract you from worrying or, you know, spending loads of money on all the pee sticks, or, you know, sort of not that we don't all do that anyway, but you can become a little bit stressed and a little bit sort of obsessive about this, and I don't think that is always a good thing. I don't think it makes you feel good. It then creates a lot of stress, and I don't think that's good. So you can sort of distract yourself and stay calm and stay relaxed, then that's going to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the immediate days after your embryo transfer, just being, I'm definitely not saying don't move. I think actually exercise and blood flow is good for you. But I think just keeping that in moderation and having space around it. I think I probably swayed in my first few embryo transfers. I probably swayed too much to the carry on with life as usual. I remember when as I was coming out into recovery sounds a bit extreme. There's nothing really to recover from, but just from the theatre room into the after ward this time, I remember the theatre manager squeezing my hand and she said, "Go and feed that embryo." And I was like, right, someone has just given me my license to go and eat as much thing as I possibly want. And I really, really did do that in the first few weeks of, like in the 2-week wait period of time. Like, food was not unhealthy food, but like healthy, and paying attention to food and nutrition was a real distraction for me. It was like, right, let me actually throw everything I'm capable of at this in terms of staying calm and eating well. I've been given that permission, and that is not quite me carrying on as life as usual. Actually, my life as usual is quite busy. I often forget to eat. I move quite quickly. So actually kind of slowing down and paying a little bit more attention is probably quite key.
As two people who both kind of support surrogates through this process, if you could give them one piece of advice to take into that room on that embryo transfer day, what would it be?
There's so much advice going into embryo transfer day. It's a tricky one. I would probably go with make sure that you've got the support in place to look after you, and just enjoy it. Like, and enjoy that one little pausing moment. 2-week wait is a whole other thing in and of itself. It's not a bad thing, but it's a totally different psychology. That one day, it's like you can all be on board with, if everything goes well, this is when we get pregnant. You know, this is where this journey starts. And I think just standing in that and enjoying that for that day is really helpful.
Yeah, I think don't take on the expectations or the pressure that this is entirely down to you and your body, that this is going to work, because it really isn't. There are so many aspects that go in to decide whether or not this is going to work. And you're only a very tiny, tiny part of it. So try and take that pressure off yourself, because I think that's where a lot of surrogates, that's where the anxiety comes from, is they put all that pressure on themselves to say that if this doesn't work, I've done something wrong, I shouldn't have done that, or, you know, maybe I did this wrong, or maybe I did that wrong. This is not on you. You know, you're playing your part. You've put your body forward to do this. That is amazing. You know, that in itself is just wonderful. You're giving this embryo a chance, and without you, it wouldn't have one. So appreciate that. Appreciate the fact that you are giving this chance rather than put on all that pressure as though it's down down to you, because it's not.
I'd agree. I think a lot of surrogates feel a real sense of failure if embryo transfers don't stick or don't work. And actually, what I've come to learn about surrogacy and all different reproductive journeys, this doesn't always mean that it ends in a baby, but there always is a journey that you just can't foresee, in whichever way it plays out, it always takes a different time scale, ends up looking different, is completely different to how you imagined it. And having that, I think I've used on previous episodes that we've been recording, the word adaptability, but that sense of like, okay, I this is enough, I'm here willingly, having been through a medicated or unmedicated cycle to get to this point. I am here willingly saying I want to get pregnant for you is enough at this point, and that is, it's hard that to maintain if it doesn't lead to a pregnancy, because you sort of feel in this limbo space of, am I a surrogate or I'm not a surrogate, what am I? But actually just allowing yourself to go, what I'm doing today is incredible.
I always compare it to, when I vision this part of it, I always vision like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz on the yellow brick road. And I just vision myself, I am on that road and my IPs are with me and we're ready to go. Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the light, like, we are ready to go. We've got there on that pathway. And whether it leads to the Emerald City or whether or not we divert to a different path or the red path or the blue path or whatever, it doesn't matter, I'm there. And we're all in this together and we're all walking this pathway. So wherever it leads us, I'm here for it. So
I love generisms. They're brilliant. They call it generisms. There's so many good ones out there. If you catch them, you listen back through all the episodes that Gina's been on. Really, really good generisms. But I like that one, the yellow brick road. Yeah.
Thanks so much, ladies. As always, your experience, expertise, take on everything is so invaluable, and I think it helps a lot of people listening to this podcast, whether they be intended parents or surrogates.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to find out more about MSJ and our completely unique surrogate membership, then head over to our website at www.mysurrogacyjourney.com or check us out on Instagram at official My Surrogacy Journey. Thanks for listening. This has been season 2 of the Surrogate Podcast.